Chat, today is the day we received the news that Donald Trump would be departing the White House. This is all very exciting. The American people have spoken, and they have said, no more. No more Donald Trump. Now, as I've stated multiple times, I am celebrating the departure of Donald Trump. I'm breathing a sigh of relief. I'm breathing a sigh of relief, as I'm sure most of you are as well. Donald Trump was a danger to this country in a way that we haven't seen. What he did to this country, so in a sea of divisiveness, turning us against each other, in a way. Bringing out the worst of the worst in people, emboldening them to act on their worst impulses that led to direct harm to so many people, is what Donald Trump did. And the legacy of Donald Trump will continue on. The war is not over with him. He is going to continue to fight. He is going to continue to attempt to agitate as many of his members of his base as possible. He is going to try to continue on what he started because he refuses to accept the outcome of this election. I know that we all feel that this is for the best, and it is. But we have to be mindful about what is to come. We have to remain vigilant to some of our most vulnerable communities and the members that might still be at risk to experience the direct harm that some people might carry out in the name of Donald Trump. The cult leader will not go away. He will continue to influence as many people as possible. And so, I do want to take this time to acknowledge that this is a step in the right direction. But I hope that we do not get comfortable and remember what Donald Trump did and how Donald Trump's legacies, his policies, his normalizing the worst behavior that we have seen in a president that has manifested down to his base in a way that is truly a remarkable thing whenever you think about how he influenced so many people. We have to continue to fight on the ground. We have to become more engaged in our community now than ever before. We can't become complacent with Joe Biden, even though it is better to see Joe Biden in the White House with the potential to have some say in the form of social pressure that we can apply to him. But we cannot forget that we will come face to face with some of the worst underlying and lingering outcomes of a Trump presidency. And that is not going away. I say this because I know a lot of people are not even going to feel a difference in Joe Biden's administration. The only thing that some of our more vulnerable community members will experience is the hatred and the vitriol that will continue on now that Trump has been removed from office. I am afraid this might lead to more people to act on their worst impulses, that they will be even more emboldened because they feel as though this election was stolen. We have already seen plenty of conservative pundits and online media personalities claim that this was a rigged election. So while I am happy to see that Trump is gone, I do not want to lose sight of the bigger picture here, that this is our time to continue on our fight on the grounds, to continue organizing on the grounds, to continue to fight for our more vulnerable communities. Because I know that if you ask them, they might too breathe a sigh of relief. But what does it mean to them? How can we continue to make their lives better? How do we find the right path forward so that we take advantage of this next administration that does stand a better chance of social progress? Not much, but a little. How do we take this opportunity to try to continue on this battle, to find a way to reach social, economic, political equality? I'm not trying to put a damper on anyone's day, because I am rather ecstatic that Donald Trump has left office, but at the same time, let me get cozy, but at the same time, I don't want to give off the impression that it's time to be complacent in any way. It means very little, says Snarky. Hi, Snarky. All right, we'll take it over to the chat now. I just wanted to kind of share my comments, share my sentiment of how I'm feeling right now, what is to be expected, and why we should, take the win, but also know that our battle is far from over. It means little, very little, frankly, knowing a lot of people will do nothing, thinking that a Biden presidency will mean in their minds things are okay. Says to me, they will fight less. That is precisely why I wanted to kick off this conversation with my sentiment as to why we should be thankful that Trump is no longer in this position where he has executive privilege to write orders that separate children, that keep Muslims out of this country, that continue to sow divisiveness in this country, that continues to segregate our communities, that continues to allow for a wealth gap of epic proportion, the ones of which we haven't seen since the Great Depression. And I say that in the minds of an organizer who is trying to work as hard as they can within their communities, fight as if Donald Trump won. The energy that we need right now should be just the same as if Donald Trump was reelected, because that is what is at stake for our most vulnerable communities and for anyone who right now is feeling the burden of economic anxiety, lack of upward social mobility, lack of resources, feeling as though they are making sacrifices every single time they receive a paycheck and they have to find out or figure out what they will do with their money. Will they pay their rents or will they pay their utilities? And for too many people, they are making these decisions every single day. Joe Biden is not going to address the grievances that the majority of the working class have in this country. So again, I say that as organizers, as leaders, as activists, as advocates for whatever you are committed to, what cause you are committed to, fight for your communities as if Donald Trump was reelected. Don't get complacent. Don't accept that Joe Biden is going to make a difference, because he's not. He is not going to make fundamental shifts in our politics. He is not going to call for a redistribution of wealth in the way that we need He is not going to be the exemplar of the theory of change that we need to see in our economic and political institutions that will lead to equitable outcomes. Not with this guy. Not with this upcoming administration. So I'll say it one more time. If you are an activist, if you're an organizer, if you're a leader in your community, continue to fight for your community as if Donald Trump were reelected. The left is the reason leftist organizations, progressive momentum that continued on after Bernie Sanders was essentially removed from the prospect of the Democratic nomination, is the reason why Joe Biden crossed the finish line. We did not see the enthusiasm. In the way that some corporate Democrats and professional Democrats are envisioning, or that they are assessing. Far too many people settled for Biden, and far too many people voted not for Joe Biden so much as they voted against Trump. And this race was too close at the end of the day to give any credence to Joe Biden's campaign. If Joe Biden wants to excuse himself and try to place blame on the Bernie supporters, because perhaps it is true that more people would have showed up to vote for Bernie Sanders than Joe Biden, then that is a time for deep reflection as to why more people were willing to show up for Bernie Sanders than Joe Biden. I think that it is completely irresponsible to try to place blame on the left or progressives in the event that they were the reason why Joe Biden almost did not win this election, when the truth of the matter is, it was the momentum that Bernie Sanders created on the ground that led activists and organizers to continue on the fight, because we knew what was at stake with a Trump re-election. It came down to Rashida Tlaib and Ilhan Omar continuing to knock door to door, even though they are so popular in their districts. AOC is so popular in her district, not so much in a blue district like the Bronx, but in Detroit, in Michigan, a swing state, in Wisconsin, that was looking to be slated as swing states. They continued to work in their district, to continue to mobilize voters. Despite the fact that they blew their opponents out of the water in both the primary and the general elections. All right? They didn't have to do that. They didn't have to campaign as hard as they did. They weren't doing this for them so much as they were doing it for Joe Biden. They were doing this to fight back against the tyranny that we were beginning to see in this dictatorial president. They fought for Joe Biden, and they turned out votes in their district that ultimately gave Joe Biden those points. To try to place blame on the leftists, on the progressives, because they preemptively wanted to place blame and scapegoats, Bernie bros, for a possible reason as to why they wouldn't win, just goes to show that the Democrats and the establishment members of the Democratic Party would rather fight the progressives to maintain the order and the status quo of the Democratic Party in many ways than go toe-to-toe with the Republicans. All right? Now, this is nothing new because we talk about this all the time, but let's not weigh John Kasich's sentiment too heavily, seeing as though he is a never Trump Republican who has done awful things to his own people in Ohio. And he is not going to be able to see the value in a progressive movement whenever he himself is part of the party that has fought for any semblances of social progress. Just because he has more in common with a Joe Biden than an AOC does not mean that he is right or correct in his assessment that it is the AOCs of the Democratic Party that almost cost Joe Biden the election. It was the stagnant, do-nothing agenda that is propagated by the Democratic Party and that was used as the main campaign strategy. I am not Donald Trump, vote for me, that almost cost Joe Biden the election. And whether or not the Democrats and the establishments come to term with that, it's yet to be seen. But it is unwise, absolutely irresponsible to try to place blame on the people who showed up and tried to get as many people enfranchised and mobilized to ensure that Joe Biden was carried to this finish line. And I would love to know if there was a pathway to an alternative universe where the Bernie Bros actually did. And when I say Bernie Bros, I guess that's a mischaracterization because I'm talking about all the people who were absolutely influenced by Bernie Sanders in the primary election, who felt like it was their duty to ensure that they continued on and they fought against Donald Trump at the very least, to continue on, to get as many people engaged in the political process, talk to 5 people a day. That's what Bernie Sanders said in every one of his campaign speeches while he was part of this primary election. Talk to 5 new people, get them involved in the political process, let them know what's at stake. Let them know that their voice matters. Let them know that this is their moment to exercise their rights to participate in this process. Don't let the powers that be that have disenfranchised you, that have burdened you to the point where you feel as though your voice does not matter by way of putting voter suppression tactics in your way. Rise above them and find a way to let your voice be heard. That was the sentiment from Bernie Sanders that did carry on throughout the general election. That is the reason why those who continued to fight on behalf of the movement that Bernie Sanders started, that he invigorated within people, is why Joe Biden ended up winning in states like Georgia and Pennsylvania and Michigan and even Arizona. Because leaders of these communities knew what was at stake. They know how dangerous Donald Trump is. And they decided to fight back against the danger of Donald Trump. And it worked in Joe Biden's favor because more people were willing to accept that it's better to settle for Joe Biden than to actively and actively sit on their hands or passively allow Donald Trump to continue on this legacy of vitriol and draconian policies and regressiveness that we have seen during his tenure. And I know that so many leftists have bowed out of electoralism. They don't believe it. They don't believe in it. It's a lost cause, which is why I say you're right. You're right. For so many people, electoralism is not enough whenever we continue to see milquetoast neoliberals obtain positions of power who have more in common with their Republican counterparts than they do with the progressive wing of their own party. It's true. It's true, which is why we have to continue on and fight as if Donald Trump were reelected. It doesn't stop here. In fact, it's just begun. Join DSA. See if there's a local chapter. See if there's a mutual aid organization. See what is available in your community. Participate in volunteerism. Get involved. Get involved in your local communities. Show up to your city council meetings. Start to build rapport with your own city council members. That's why they're there. Start to become active in whatever community organization is there. Become a leader in your community. Run for office. Run for office. Run for city council. Run for city council. Run for commissioner. Run for any public seat that's available. If you want to see true change, if you are not satisfied with this administration, and you know that we deserve better, then this is the time to start your own journey, to find out how you can make a difference. We need more people like you. Remember, we have seen unprecedented voter turnout in this election, but don't forget, there are still far more people who have abstained from the voting process than any active organizers that are on the ground right now, fighting to make a difference. We are not living up for old time's sake. We're not living up anymore. We're past the points. Joe Biden is the president-elect. This is the time when we say we refuse. We refuse to settle for liberalism. We refuse to accept that everything will go back to normal, because if you are in that place, if you are in the position to feel like this is a sigh of relief because you don't have to look at the orange fat fuck in the White House anymore, then guess what? You are not one of the people I am speaking to. Unless you are willing to accept that we have to go further than what is offered with the Biden administration, then you might be one of those staunch liberals who are too far gone, who are too rooted in your own espoused understanding of politics, of representation, that you might be too far gone. But if you are in the business of maybe opening up your eyes and understanding that liberalism is a brain disease, it is poison, it is complacency, it is the illusion that things are getting better. It's not. Things are stagnant. Things have to get better. We have to look past the performative measures that we see from the Democrats and look at what is really happening at the ground level. We have to assess our own material conditions. We have to assess who's hurting the most. We have to address how these policies that we are seeing and what we will see will not change. Joe Biden himself said that nothing will fundamentally change. So if we are going to see any fundamental shifts or changes, it's up to us. It is up to us. Our material conditions under a Biden administration is not going to change unless you are making well over $400,000 a year. I'm talking to you because you have a stake in this. You have skin in this game. You understand. You understand why we cannot settle for Joe Biden. We have to continue to support progressive organizations that are working to get more representation in these safe blue districts, to unseat these corporate Democrats who, again, have more in common or more so politically align with Republicans than they do progressives. It is perhaps the best or only pathway forward. And there is no better way to get involved in this process than to start participating yourself. There is a pathway forward for you to make a difference. And if you are not satisfied, and I hope that you're not, I hope that you do not feel Like, this is all going to be okay for us now that Joe Biden is the president, because it's not. I am now just repeating myself 3 different ways, but thank you for sticking with me and listening to me.